Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EnSoil Algae webinar. It's been a while, and we're happy to be back with everyone. My name is Yazzie, and we have more members of our team joining us today, who you'll meet soon. And together, we are dedicated to bringing EnSoil Algae, our live cell algae product, to growers worldwide. And we realized early on that in order to do this, we would need to build trust through education and relationships, which is the basis for how we operate as a team and why we started this webinar as a community place. So EnSoil Algae, it's a unique product due to its living quality. Our technology enables this ancient and extremely durable species of green microalgae called Chlorella vulgaris to remain alive from our lab to our grower's shelf to the soil it's applied on. And this living quality of our algae allows the algae to work at its fullest potential and effectively activate the biological engine beneath our feet. And we've been trialing in research and farm settings for over 5 years now. I think 5 years. And we can confidently say that this activation enables significant improvements in soil and plant health, nutrient density, and shows a strong correlation with yield gains, all while reducing the need for synthetic inputs. And so the ROI gains we've seen with our growers have been truly life-changing. And today we have our webinar, Improving Herd Health from the Source, Why Focusing on the Soil Delivers a Massive Return on Investment. We are going to be highlighting the benefits we've seen in cattle fed with hay and forage treated with EnSoil algae and the ROI implications for ranchers. And we're going to make the case to everyone that improving herd health from the mother source is the key to true success and profitability for ranchers, with the help of our guests, Mike and Bryan, who Tucker will now introduce to you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tucker Garrigan. I'm part of the business development and team that's focused on traveling and educating and learning from our clients and our business partners around the country. Want to express just a ton of gratitude to both Bryan and Mike for first their recognition of what we were trying to do, recognizing the potential here and their willingness to work with us, apply the algae, share the message among their business partners and clients, and really help us study and learn from getting the algae out in a number of environments. And we also have Darren Unruh, who's part of our team at EnSoil Algae, but also a lifelong cattleman in South Central Kansas. So if you guys, maybe Bryan and then Mike and then Darren, if y'all don't mind giving the audience a couple of sentences or two about your background and your expertise, and we'll go from there.
Go, Mike.
Oh, I thought it said Bryan and Mike. Okay, I'll go. Okay, I'll shoot first. Okay, Mike Bettle, born and raised Central England on a small dairy. Always had my foot in the agricultural world. Went on to Leeds University, got my ag science degree up there, and so I had my career in Britain. Formed my own little animal feed company in '86. Business went to heck at the end of the '80s, beginning of the '90s, when a certain Mr. Soros messed around with the British currency, and I had the opportunity to come to the States. So I've been in the States since '91. Initially promoting a nutritional drench product, natural drench that had been naturally chelated with the nutrients have been naturally chelated with lactobacillus bacteria. Then I moved into dairy nutrition, which is obviously what my qualification is for, and then I've been a couple of years in. I really want to improve the quality of haylage. And the way I saw improving the quality is actually improving the siling process. So I formulated an enzyme-based inoculant, which has worked very well over the years. Initially, just selling it to my customers, my nutrition customers. Got a little bit selfish, because if your forages are good, then it makes you look pretty good. Then it started to grow, and now my business is pretty much all toward the silage inoculant. So about 5 years ago, started getting interested in this amazing thing called the soil. If you're a ruminant nutritionist, then what's going on down in the soil is kind of pretty similar. So I met up with Tucker about 3-4 years ago at a Regen ag conference in Kearney, Nebraska, and taken a very close interest, but only just this year I've been able to start working directly with Tucker and working with the product, and it's all very exciting. So yeah, improving animal health through nutrition has been my thing. So yeah, I'm very grateful for Tucker I kind of wandered over to the booth and said, "What's this green stuff then?" And that was it.
It has a certain appeal. Thank you for that, Mike. Bryan?
Yeah, this is Bryan Mussard from Dillon, Montana with Reminisce Angus Ranch, and we met Tucker 4 years ago, and perfect timing for us. We had bought a ranch and that had been heavily fertilized with chemical fertilizer, and we put the same thing on that the ranches have been doing since 1954. I mean, they were always putting fertilizer on it, and we grew the biggest crop they had ever seen that year. The water was good, everything was wonderful, crop was huge, but my wife and I just looked at each other and said, do we really want to keep doing this? The folks that have been there, those ranchers and neighbors, and the ditch rider who had grew up there, was born up there, said, there's no more frogs anymore, there's no more, life is really changing up here, and everybody uses this. And so we wanted to do something different. We've got to do, what natural thing can we do? And we didn't have any answers. We didn't know what we were going to do. All we did is we stopped using fertilizer, and our crop began to deteriorate, every year. 2021 was devastating because it was a drought, and we didn't help it. And 2022, Tucker showed up and explained what the algae would do, and I took him at his word and I applied it, and we saw pretty good results that year. We were pretty shocked at the color of the feed, and they added just the increase in the trace minerals in our feed. We didn't measure any vitamins in the feed. We just measured trace minerals. And then we watched over the course of that winter how our cows ate that hay compared to the other hay that didn't have algae on it. It was just absolutely amazing. Our cows eat wild grass hay like a swarm of bees that have had algae, and they'll just walk through it. You can feed them the best grass alfalfa or whatever you want, green, 18% protein, and they will turn their noses up on it and go eat rained on grass hay, stuff that we didn't get to in time. And that just told us, without measuring anything, there was something in there that the cows wanted. They told us. They were doing the math. They were doing the measuring. We were just watching. So fast forward through today, we've used it for 4 years now, and we calve in June, so we're breeding our cows in September, and that's a tough time of year to get your cows done. And the plants are turning yellow, the color's going out of it. There's not as much, there's energy in it, but you've got to just pour the protein and mineral to it to make up. And we were seeing in our yearling heifers 15 to 16% open rates every year. Didn't matter what we fed them. They'd eat 20 bags of mineral. We'd get that many opens, and very heartbreaking when you're just selling, 4th-generation AI cattle that are open, because when you're trying to get them bred that time of year. So we'd had so much luck on the hay and watching our cows, and they lowered their mineral intake. That was another thing we noticed over 3 years. They really lowered their mineral intake. We sprayed the pasture where we had our yearling heifers. I just thought, you know, we've seen something's happening. I didn't see enough on the lab results that showed, you know, I couldn't convince anybody. I couldn't even convince myself looking at the standard tests that it was that much better, but the cows were showing me that it was. And so we just sprayed 80 acres where we summer 125 heifers on for 3 months prior to AIing them. And when we brought those heifers in, first thing we noticed is typically they eat 19 bags of mineral. I think I said 20 earlier. They eat 19 bags of mineral. The year we sprayed that, which was last year, they ate 1 bag of mineral. The heifers were 115 pounds heavier. They cycled like a dream, and we had a 4% open rate. Significant, very significant difference in that. Second thing we did that we measured last year is in another field, our 3-year-olds, typically our first calf heifers, we call them 3-year-olds, but our first calvers, you know, if you can imagine if we're getting 15% conception on our yearling heifers that have no issues, we were 18 to 22% open on our first calf heifers because they have younger calves. Typically this time of year up here in Montana, when you're getting into September and August and October, those calves are bigger. They're drinking less milk. They're eating more feed. Those cows start putting on flesh. But when you calve in June and you get into September and you're trying to get that cow bred, those calves are still little. They can't eat enough feed. They're really pulling those young cows down. And so, you know, our conception rate was just terrible. It was very frustrating. So what we did is we took those 2-year-old heifers, moved them to a field that had had algae on it for 3 years. This was a year ago. And in that field, we put the same amount of heifers in there, same amount of cows in there this time of year. It takes 9 bags of protein and mineral every week in that field. Last year, we put those heifers in that field. We put our 9 bags of protein out first day. And typically our cows will clean that up in 24 hours, 48 hours. I mean, they just woof through it. And we went back the next week, which we always do, to put out our 9 bags of mineral, and our tubs were full. And we went out the following week and the following week, and those first 9 bags of mineral lasted 6 weeks before we had to refill them. And so our young cows looked better. We were kind of excited. And we had already preg checked our heifers, and the preg rate on those first calf heifers went from, like I said, an average of about 20% open to 11% open. That's a huge, huge win for us. And so without going on any further, there's a lot more data to show. The last thing I'll say before I get off is we still didn't know what were the cows craving, why weren't they eating minerals, because it didn't show on our standard test. So we went ahead and sent in a further sample to test the vitamin A and the vitamin E on the hay that we were feeding, because in cold weather, those are real huge for calving in the spring. And it had over doubled in vitamin A and vitamin E. And it really clicked for me. That's why those cows aren't pushing us as hard. Is we're not only bringing up the minerals, which we look at in all of our hay samples, we're bringing up the vitamins. And I didn't even put that together. Now, in this last week, we'll have that available. Tucker, I did find out we'll have that available on Friday.
Okay.
But we have people out here, bull customers of ours, that have sprayed a field with algae and didn't spray another field on their ranches first year, and 3 separate valleys. So there's a mountain pass between each of these valleys. It's all the same grasses. We all have it's Timothy and brome and Garrison foxtail would be the 3 main ones. There's other ones in there. And so we'll have tests back with vitamins A, D, and E levels to see if we can't find is that what's really going on? Are we going to see higher rates in all of those, on all those ranches? There's 6 different ranches on there that we're looking at. That should be some incredible data that we can all use.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, Bryan. Your observations have been a compass for us in helping us guide research and the data we're collecting. I have had a lot of conversations. This is just anecdotal, but a couple of clients in Minnesota commenting on significant reduction in calf mortality, while also clearly putting up really good alfalfa and happy with production and recognizing the same preference from the cattle in the feed that's treated with algae. Darren, you want to give a few sentences about yourself as well?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I did not meet Tucker 4 years ago like you guys did. I wish I would have. I'd have been a lot further along, but I just started with working for EnSoil Algae here in May, and I got to meet Tucker and the rest of the team here, and it's been quite a ride. So my brother and I have just a small cow-calf operation in south central Kansas near the big town of Pretty Prairie, and I want to add something on what Bryan was saying. It's really interesting how when you watch your cattle, you can see a lot of differences. We rotationally graze, or I call it flex grazing, moving them cows every 2 days as time allows. And when we get to certain areas of the ranch, they just stop eating mineral. They're getting what they need out of the mostly forbs and browse. And this year, of course, I got it on my own alfalfa for winter feed this year, and really excited to see how they do. Looking forward to also, we've taken over some expired CRP ground, and I want to get the algae out on it. The cattle, whenever we have them on that expired CRP ground, it's depleted farm ground. It probably should have never been broken out of native prairie. And I can't wait to watch the mineral consumption when we get it out on those parts of the ranch and see what it does for us. So anyway, excited to be here. Excited to learn from Mike and Bryan both. Well, one of the big reasons that I really wanted to come to work for EnSoil Algae was some of the videos that I watched on the results Bryan's getting up there. I thought, wow, this is something that I can really dive into. It's cool.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, I mean, the mission here, look, we're trying to help farmers and ranchers be more profitable, which means using the power of the biology, the life in our soils to drive production in better balance with the chemical tools, overall reduction of input costs. And what we're seeing, and this is not just in feed and forage, but we're putting more nutrition in everything that's grown, leveraging a healthier microbiome, and algae, the EnSoil algae has a profound effect on that. I want to frame this discussion around nutrition, and specifically Mike and Bryan, how have strategies evolved as you guys have become more aware of the power of the life in your soil? Mike, you mentioned 5 years ago is really when you started really focusing on this, and Bryan is around the same time frame. Even if you had awareness of it, it's really finding and implementing solutions to build life in the soil. I'll start with you, Mike. Among your clients, like, what do you see as most often overlooked in nutritional programs? And that may be a leading question, since I just said it's going to be about soil, but what have you seen sort of historically in your career, and where are you taking clients and advising them to go now?
Well, my world is dairy nutrition. It's basically, we assume there's nothing coming out of the forages. And those cows get their 1.5 pound vitamin mineral pack per day, in their TMR, in their total mixed rations. So, because we know that the minerals are depleted, and the vitamins are depleted out of the alfalfa. The major minerals, obviously, the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, they're factored in to our formulations. But there's so much more, going down the road that you could bring in through the plant if we knew it was there. So we assume it isn't. And so, that we feed, a good deal of chelated trace elements, which are not cheap, and make it up with inorganic minerals. So in the dairy world, it's if you've got dairies that grow their own alfalfa, this is going to be would be a really good test for the algae. Is have them then apply it to the alfalfa, and because you can measure. I mean, the dairies these days measure every little bit of data, so that's what I'm looking forward to, is getting some bigger dairies to treat their alfalfa, and we can see that monitor their breeding, monitor their health, and production, obviously. So if we can reduce that 1.5 pound pack, down considerably, because we've enriched the alfalfa or the corn as well, the corn silage, then that's my goal. As well as, I always feel it's the reason I kind of started to focus on the soil was because, if you can improve the soil, that actually leaves a legacy. Keeping a cow healthy for 3 or 4 years is one thing, but keeping the soil, regenerating the soil is quite another.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think one thing we're going to add to what maybe some of these dairies that are growing their own alfalfa measure is the biology in the soil, and understanding how that unlocks the nutrition that's bound and already available to them, but not getting into the plants because they're not supporting the biology necessary to move that bound nutrition, solubilize it.
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing sap tests on alfalfa these last 3 years, and soil tells you there's plenty of phosphorus there, but the plant's saying we ain't got any phosphorus.
Yeah. Bryan, turning that similar question to you. I know you buy quite a bit of feed from people in your region. And I know you the things that you overlook, but do you see them still overlooking? Any comments on if you could change people's process on how they're evaluating success from just protein and tonnage?
Yeah, I mean, I would really, it was nice listening to Mike. We also run a feedlot. We feed about 7,000 head of calves for other people over the winter. We push big calves. They're on a 45 to 60-day wean program. We have heifers that come in. We'll develop them for AI. We'll have light grass calves that you try to feed as cheap as you possibly can. I always joke with my customer, they want to know what it's going to cost. And I say, well, I'm just going to feed them compost and straw and give them a water tank. That's as low as I can go, but that's our challenge, has always been our challenge. And what you said, Mike, really hit home. I think why I was really searching, and the timing was right with Tucker, is in the feedlot business, I just got to the point where we assumed there was nothing, zero nutrients coming with the feed. All you were doing is buying roughage, protein, and energy. That's it. And then we kept buying the best, most, bioavailable mineral packs we could to get into the cows, because we knew we weren't delivering anything with the feed. We were just trying to fill them up. And then you were trying to buy cheaper feed and fill them up because you had to buy more expensive mineral. And so that I really feel like that gave me an advantage, because it's not just our cow herd out in the mountains and the pastures and stuff. We're feeding 7,000 calves that come from a dozen different environments: high hills, dry hills, mountains, irrigated pastures, 20 different vaccination programs. And we have to kind of pull these stressed calves together and move them forward. And now we have for 3 years, gone to the people that we buy feed that always want to sell us feed and say, okay, here's your algae. We don't buy feed from anybody that's not putting algae on it, because it makes our feeding program better. And then as far as pricing, they're like, well, how am I going to pay for it? And I said, well, whatever the grain hay market is, I'm going to pay you that. And then I'm just going to pay you for your algae. So it's not going to cost you anything to do that. The premium is going to be, it costs you nothing, and you get the stuff in the soil. I get the nutrients in the feed. We both win, and we move on. And so I really recognize just from what I've seen in our cows, is I can pull that same nutrition from anybody's soil that we're buying our feed from. And I need that same stuff. And by doing that, we use a lot of chlorides in our mineral package. So it's,
Yeah.
we're getting 90% of it to the cow.
Mhm.
Well, we've dropped a 1 pound per head supplement down to a 0.5 pound per head supplement because we're delivering more nutrition through the feed. And so again, that's a savings. We're accomplishing the same performance goals. We're accomplishing better conception rates on the heifers, less sickness, less relapses. And I wanted to go back really quick as far as tying this together monetarily. That group of 114 first calf heifers that we ran that trial on a year ago, when you take 9 bags of mineral times 6, that's $360 a week is what we're putting into those cows. We only had to put out once in 6 weeks. Well, that saved us. I took so many notes here. That's $1,800, the mineral that we saved. And the cost of the algae just in that one field, and I included if I had to pay somebody to do it, it's $8 an acre. So you include that $17 an acre, that costs us $3,000. You take out your mineral savings, and then you actually double that because that lasted over 12 weeks, not 6. So I made $540. It paid me $540 just in my mineral savings. And then you add the increased conception rate. I had 12 more bred cows, first calf heifers, and that just add $1,000. That's pretty conservative, the value between an open one and a bred one. That put $15,000 back in my pocket. And you run that in there, that's another 10 ton of mineral. So my mineral bill for my cow herd was paid for the entire winter. And so always measuring these things. That's what we're doing on our place. This year, the second year, we sprayed that same field with our heifers. We left them in there, and we had the highest response to the synchronization we've ever had. Typically, we're at 80 to 82. Every once in a while, we'll get 84. And this year it was 92.6% of those heifers responded to the sync, which was, we're going to test them here next week. I'm really excited to see if we can't bump that number again. But just that response tells me that it's working. And we didn't even put mineral out this year. They only ate 1 bag last year. And so I was like, the heck with you. I'm not going to give you anything. You go eat the dirt. And it worked.
That's really cool. And that's really interesting, Brian. I think that a lot of times guys don't figure in on what their number of opens they have and what that's really costing them. It takes a while to get those heifers up to a point to where there should be bred. And it costs a lot if they don't. Now, cattle prices where they are, it's not bad. I mean, it's not like we're losing money. But that being said, that's a big expense in the difference between an open and bred. And Mike, I guess it would be the same way with the dairy heifers, wouldn't it?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
I mean, again, it's TMR with the dairy heifers. They're all in dry lots. So, but for sure, yeah.
Brian, you mentioned the stress, the different stresses coming from the diverse places the cattle you're backgrounding are from. Have you seen a link, from knowing the nutrition's better, what you're feeding those cows to their performance and your overall healthcare costs?
Yeah, our healthcare costs have gone down. We have less pulls, and what's bigger than that, and that's a little bit tougher one to measure, because you have to go back each year. These calves are coming in the feedlot now. They'll come in to our feedlot over the course of 90 days. And so you have to measure and pay attention to what's the weather over the same 90 days every year. And then you can't just keep track of, was it hot and cold, snow and rain when they were weaning and bringing the calves in, then you got to add in, was the hay rained on that we have? What was the summer like? Was it a wet summer? Was it a dry summer? What was the winter before? Because if those calves have stress, if it's 20 below and you have stress on those calves, if they got doctored when they're a baby, we're going to doctor them when they get weaned. at our feed yard. And so you got to measure all of that, but we have seen a lower rate of sick pulls and an even lower rate of relapses, which is really, really exciting. I know mycoplasma is a huge thing, still raging across the country here. I would say, we quit using, the vets talked us out of using Ivomec and Cydectin and all the permectrins, pyrethrins about 8 years ago, and said to use cleanup. And so everybody switched to cleanup because, those cows, you didn't have to pour them twice, you didn't have to get them in and work them twice. And so we all were like, hooray, this stuff will last longer. We went that way. And same in the feedlot. We quit using Ivomec in the feedlot. And I had never heard of mycoplasma, never heard of it. And then all of a sudden, we're doctoring calves, and as soon as you doctor them, you got a crippled or lame calf. And we didn't know what the heck was going on. And then it started growing and all of our customers are using cleanup coming in. And again, cleanup wasn't the problem, but what the ivermectin did, we didn't know about. After about 3 years of euthanizing anywhere from 40 to 106 or 7 head on our worst year, and truckers coming in to buy calves from Kansas and Minnesota and all over saying, what are you guys doing for mycos? What are you doing for mycos? I mean, everybody had it. The buffalo people were having mycos, and there's no cell wall in mycoplasma, so nobody could treat it. And then going through COVID, we realized that you could, before we went to the COVID, I sent in samples for 2 years ago, and I've got to beat this or my feedlot's going to be empty. People they're starting to question whether or not I'm paying attention. We realized that every animal, no matter what it died from, whether it was BRD or Haemophilus or whatever they died from, every single one of them had coronavirus. It all started with coronavirus. And then, so we went through 2021, we went through that 2022, and it finally clicked in my head going, hey, wait a minute. If Ivomec is killing coronavirus, then we need to go back to Ivomec, and we did. And I'll tell you what, we ended mycoplasma at our feedlot. It stopped. And so now those cattle get Ivomec coming in immediately upon arrival. Then we turn them out, we'll vaccinate them 2-3 weeks later. If they get treated, they get Ivomec again on their first treatment. And it has really changed the game with us. But with the algae on all the feed, that's our backup. I think that's why we're not getting near as many repeats, chronic illnesses. We have less cattle left over. Our biggest customer would typically have 75 or 80 calves left over. He'd bring us 2,600 that we couldn't sell, that had just got sick. We'd keep them for an additional 60 days, feed them, and then take them to the sale barn. Now there's about 18 head left, which is normal on a deal like that. And I know the algae in the feed is really doing us that undercurrent. It's like you said, Darren, you're not measuring that, but what's behind the scenes helping you out that you're really not looking at? And I know that our corn silage and our hay has that in that.
Yeah, that's really nice. Really nice to have that backup. And I'll second that notion. Boy, we bought a set of stockers out of the Southeast one winter, and they had mycoplasma when they arrived. And gosh, this was 20 years ago, and man, it was a train wreck. The death loss, I mean, it really put a hurt on us. So that is no joke. And if we can do it through nutrition, through things like Ivomec, man, they can really save a lot of guys a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned there, Darren, about cattle coming out of the Southeast. I lived in Tennessee for 13 years when I first came over here, and trying to talk to ranchers about vitamin mineral, free choice vitamin minerals. They weren't even interested. So those cattle come up from there to the Midwest to the feedlots, and they all got white muscle disease, selenium deficiency, vitamin E deficiencies, and they're sicker than dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have had EnSoil algae back in those days, 'cause we got a lot of cattle up out of Florida. The good, and my gosh, they had quantity of grass, but they had no quality. And
Yeah.
man, when they hit here, inhaling the minerals and putting the pounds on in a hurry. Good news is there's some of that compensatory gain built up in them that we could put them on with good feed, but can't imagine what it'd be like with algae. The good news is one of our production plants is actually in Florida, and we've got a lot of Florida ranchers who are now seeing the advantage of using algae on their pastures. And so really excited. It could be a big game changer for people that are still buying those stockers coming out of the Southeast.
You guys just all touched on it. So there's this widespread vitamin and mineral deficiency. And Darren, I know you and I have talked a bit about it, and you got thoughts on it, and it's a sort of fundamental sort of adding to an approach or a mindset for producers. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the way I look at it, I was really blessed to get to know a man I look up to as a mentor. He's since passed, but his name was Bud Williams. Most of you guys may have heard of him. He invented the Bud box, and I was losing a lot of cattle, a lot of these sale-born calves and stuff. And so I got to go down when he was living in Bowie, Texas, and spend a day with him, just one-on-one. And he imparted into me. He said, really, as well. Then I went to a lot of his schools and stuff too. But he imparted to me. He said, really, we have, as ranchers, we have three things to manage. We manage cattle, manage grass, and manage money, and especially in the stocker business. And he said, you can always, you can never have too much money or too much grass, but there's times where you can have too many cattle. And I always try to keep that in mind as a balance, when I think about what we're doing here on our small operation. And I have focused on the grass for a long time. So that's where it comes into the rotationally grazing. And the thing about the EnSoil algae is it allows us to actually take that to the next level. It's not just about the quantity of grass, it's about the quality of the grass too, right? Because that can help in so many different areas, including the nutrition or being able to manage the cows. So the way I think about it is, let's raise, yes, a large volume. Now, we just came out of 3 years of drought, and gosh, it was a stretch to try to keep enough forage going. But let's also take that to the next level and think about the quality of the grass that we're raising. If we can raise that higher quality, that's going to help on the money thing, and it's also going to help on the herd health and being able to manage our cattle better. That's what I like to keep in mind is those three things. I think it could go a long ways. Do you guys disagree with me on that? On the
No, not at all. Bryan made the point about paying a premium for cattle that are raised on algae treated pasture. That would be a good avenue to explore, I think, because just telling your calf operations down in the Southeast that you need to be using this, they're not going to do it unless there's something tangible in it. But it's going to make the cattle so much more desirable, if once this gets spread through the industry, and know that they produce really, really healthy feeders, then that's definitely going to be an avenue to market the product through.
Yeah, Bryan and I have discussed this quite a bit, and it's funny. We need to kind of, as an industry, start measuring the right things. So in the soil, it's measuring the biology to understand how you can move the nutrition into the plant, and then in the feed, measuring not just the protein and trace minerals, but the vitamins also, which currently is obviously it's expensive. But Bryan, you've talked that you believe that is the key to getting ranchers to recognize and be able to help themselves, right? Shift away from the sort of the status quo methods. It's we've got to build the data set around these vitamin and mineral improvements, and then educate everybody how to understand why it's so impactful.
And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
so then take that data forward to include, the health of the animal when it arrives in the feedlot.
Right. So we're calculating the return on investment, and not just in the algae, but the other inputs that are part of the system and the management practices and the labor that goes along with that. But I mean, Bryan, you detailed what you just tell us that one pasture paid $15,000
Paid for the mineral for my entire cow herd for the winter.
based on not just mineral consumption reduction, but the conception rates and
just the mineral consumption, just the reduction in mineral consumption, the increase in production. I didn't mention, I should have mentioned, I think I forgot, but in our yearling heifers, go to the other pasture, the heifers weighed 115 pounds more just by spraying the pasture. And so, yeah, we went from 15% open to 4% open, and then our open heifers were 115 pounds heavier. And so that's $500. You put that in your pocket. You don't feed them any mineral. It all starts adding up, and this is the absolute first thing I've used in my career that isn't just another add-on. An add-on expense, and then usually with those add-on expenses, the return is so low, you can blame it on the drought, you can blame it on whatever in the heck you want to. And this, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what happens in that year, it just works. And I think what really triggered us to start measuring the vitamins in 2023, it was the coldest winter we had here since 1993. I mean, we had weeks temperatures between 0 and 35 below for weeks and weeks at a time. And we had lots of customers. This would have been the first year, Tucker, that winter. We had customers that had great weather in January, the end of January, 1st of February, calved all their calves out, really lucked that cold storm really kind of hit us in the 10th of February, middle of February. 3-week-old, month-old calves just laying down and dying, just perishing, healthy calves, never had a bad day in their life, and they just died. And I was asking our nutritionist, what is going on? I mean, what's happening? These people are all coming to me at panic going, I can't save them, I can't save them. And he said, it's the level of vitamin E in that cow. He said, people are feeding cheap mineral. Their vitamin E source is not bioavailable to the cow. And if that does not get into the brown fat of that cow, it does not get into the colostrum. And if you don't get into the colostrum, they can't give that calf enough feed. They cannot get enough vitamin E into that calf to keep it alive in cold weather. And that's what really triggered me to going, okay, we got to start measuring the vitamins. And if those levels stay doubled in all that feed like they did in ours, that's a game changer for ranchers, because they're using scour guard, they're feeding tons of hay, they're feeding biomass, and they're spending all of this money that's probably 2.5, 3 times as much as just spraying their field and letting the field feed those cows and put that into them. It will be a major game changer for them. And that's what we're hoping to get these samples back and see that it's very consistent on doubling the vitamin E levels in A and D in this feed.
And thank you for the recognition and the work on that. It's certainly one of the most exciting things that I have going on. I mean, I wake up thinking about it because of how important it could be and how helpful it could be. I mentioned earlier, I'm talking to growers in Minnesota who have seen similar responses in their animals. I want to make sure we got about 13 minutes left on the clock, and wanted to open up to questions from the audience. And Yazzie, if you don't mind directing that as you can.
Yeah, looks like Charles raised his hand, so go ahead.
Bryan and Darren and Mike, thanks a lot for this. Bryan, are other feedlot operators seeing what you're doing and saying, I got to change? Or is this something the word's slow getting out?
No, other feedlot operators are not doing this. I will share, we got into the box beef business 4 years ago. And so we got it, rather than just pay for canned ads, I get on and I do live ads. I just take all my time for the week and do a live 5-minute deal every week. So we started talking about, the benefits of the algae and talking about we don't even talk about our beef program. I just talk about cows and the environment, and now the algae. I spend more time talking about algae than I do talking about our beef. And the local feed salesman here, I tried to get him. I said, look, you spray liquid fertilizer. If somebody wants a natural soil amendment, you want to add this to you. It'd be a great thing. And here's the business. And he said, no, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. And my comment to him was, actually, you are drinking the Kool-Aid, and you don't recognize water when it's being offered to you. And I could say that to him, and I meant it. It was fairly blunt, because I'm the same way. I was drinking Kool-Aid forever, and we were changing flavors of Kool-Aid forever. And Tucker showed up with a bottle of water, green bottle of water, and I was like, what the heck is this stuff? And it was real, and it was natural. And so we have to lead. I have found there's so much stuff out there. There's so many things that have very marginal results that we just got to lead, bite the bullet and lead by example and show the data, and then other people. And it is growing. There is that same guy, there's an algae product that we feed to the cattle in our feed lot to complement the algae on our feed, which is really just turbocharged our results. And he was very negative, wouldn't bring it in. Again, I tried to hand him the thing. I said, here, I'll get on the radio. I'm just advertising it. People are asking. I don't have time to be a salesman. And the same guy that said, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet, has now sold 3 semi-loads of the algae tubs that I've advertised for nothing. They're becoming believers. His customers they're listening. They're quietly listening to what's going on in these results. And you just can't beat it. You can't deny them.
So you're putting it in lick tubs?
Yeah, they make a lick tub that has that in there. We buy it bulk. Tucker's the one that introduced us to these guys, because it was from soil, feed the soil feeds the plant feeds the cows, they're healthier, and then we're healthier. And so we are still on that program. We buy it by the semi-load now. We just buy the raw material, mix it into our TMR. Tremendous improvements in the feed lot, tremendous improvements. And we really feel like with the plants delivering, feeding that algae to the cattle. We wintered our cattle last year on that other algae and salt. We quit the mineral. 80% mineral cost me $1,400 now. I can't say it's a ripoff. Maybe it costs that much, but I can buy this algae and Redmond salt and put it out to my cows for $560 a ton. And I get the same benefits as I'm getting from the soil. And my cows don't eat it. They don't overeat it because they're getting it in the plant.
So let me ask you, you touched on something, Bryan, that I want to ask you and Mike both is, take it to the next level. You said makes healthy people too. Do you believe that your beef is a lot? Where do we go for the next step then? Is the beef and the milk going to be this whole food is health movement is for real, and it's here? Is this
we're right in the middle of that right now? In fact, I just came back. We process 80 head of cattle every month, and Monday was the first set of steers that have been on algae feed, and we fed them this algae through finish all the way through. We've been trying to get this done for 3 years now. This is our first batch. So we took samples of the meat, and then that is exactly what we're trying to do, is show people that we start with the soil, go all the way through to them, and look at what we're doing. And the biggest thing we're going to probably see that most people are going to find, there'll be some other things, but the biggest thing is when you finish cattle on a 92% corn ration compared to grass fed, your omega-6 3 ratio goes from a 3-to-1 up to like a 22-to-1, 25-to-1. And we ran a small trial at our feedlot here in Montana. We only had 5 steers on it, but we brought it down. We fed 3/4 of a pound a day, plus they had all the algae feed there, and we dropped that to 12-to-1.
Wow.
And that's the move that needs to happen, because we can't, if the whole United States went all grass fed, there's not enough meat, there's not enough tallow, there's not enough ground. We can't do it. We have to shift the main industry a couple degrees to really get some measurable results. And so I will have those samples back next week too. And that's on a big group. And then we're poised. We have a year supply of cattle in that feedlot. We're finishing them with that algae. His growers, we tried to get them on the EnSoil this spring. They didn't do it. But if I get these results back and they show what I'm pretty sure they're going to show, then all of his growers will have it. So they'll come from, all of our cattle will have it up here on the pastures. And where we finish down there, the corn's going to have it. The silage is going to have it. And then we're actually going to push them even harder to use non-GMO corn, because it's pretty simple that, you know, look at the farmers today. This thing gets pretty wide pretty fast. Farmers are broke today. You know, the U.S. Treasury is taking in trillions of dollars, and farmers are going broke because they can't sell anything. Nobody wants to buy our GMO stuff. I mean, that word is out there, whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, the word is out there. And if it was okay, Europe would be taking everything. China would be, every other country. We wouldn't have $4 corn and $4 wheat. It'd all be $8, and it's not. And so that's what we're trying to bring together from pasture to plate all the way through, that we do have a product that there's a measurable difference in.
Tucker, is there an omega-3 profile in the algae? Because algae can be a good source of omega-3s.
Yeah, Dr. Taylor, I saw you were on here earlier. Do you want to jump in on this, George?
We haven't measured omega-3. You know, one of the things that has been interesting though is that you all mentioned vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant, as well as A and C. Another class of compounds that would be worth measuring is the phytochemical class, the polyphenol class, because they are pretty powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. And it turns out you can measure it in meat. It's a fairly inexpensive test too. What they come up with is what they call antioxidant capacity of the meat, and I think the test is like $100 in creative proteomics. So if you got any steaks in the freezer from those cattle, don't throw them away. Tucker will get back to you with the name of the lab, but it would be really worth sending some in for that, those antioxidant measures. Compare them to your neighbor's cattle who haven't been fed with the algae.
George, I thought you were going to say, don't throw them away. Send them to you in South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, here, another thing about these polyphenols, this group of compounds, they're responsible for taste and color. The cattle are preferentially grazing on algae-grown grass. And it's not because it makes them healthier, it's because it tastes better. And the polyphenols are responsible for that. But at the same time, they have these antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties that are probably important, worth measuring. And the other is, so as a matter of fact, it very well may be that the taste of the meat is better. You know,
they do have tests back that the meat does taste better with the fed through algae. We're trying to tie it all the way back through to the algae we put on the plant. But what are those two specific tests to test for? Because they're testing them right now as we're talking.
Well, there's a lab we use. We're doing polyphenol and flavonoid and carotenoid measurements on crops that are grown with algae versus not. And there's a lab in New York that we, as a send out, we send it to. We'd love to get your pasture grass to test if we haven't already, and alfalfa, by the way, to compare that with grass and alfalfa not grown with the algae. But the lab does have a test that they can do on meat, and antioxidant capacity has been tested in beef, pork, and poultry. They have done research using those measurements in a variety of meats, and it would be extremely worthwhile to get it on your beef. I'll tell you, I'm going to be talking about this in a month on a webinar, but I have a feeling that the definition of health food is going to change, and it's going to change because there are things now that we can measure that are related to health, and that includes vitamin levels, but it also includes these antioxidants. And 5 years from now, I would not be at all surprised if 5 years from now you walk into a grocery store and you're going to see an antioxidant score on the package. This not a guess; it's a measurement. Measurements have been made in a lab, and the higher the score, the more you'll pay for the product, and it'll taste better, and it'll be healthier. And working back to the producer will collect a premium,
George,
for that superior food.
can we run the same tests on the milk?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've been fiddling around with some new skincare products that might be you could make with live algae, strangely enough, and they can measure it on that. You know, they can look at antioxidant capacity pretty easily, and it's a test that's cheaper than doing a PLFA and Haney test on soil. You know.
Thank you for.
I'm just going to throw up a slide really quick with everyone's contact information, but anyone on this webinar will receive an email with the recording in this. But I think we had another question, but I'm just going to throw this up while we finish up.
So I saw Gabe had her hand up, and Arthur. Who's
Mhm.
next? Izzy?
I saw Gabe and Arthur.
So I'll just go real fast. I just was echoing where George was. I had a long conversation about this very subject yesterday with George. It's top of mind, especially, end to end, from, as George was saying, all the way out to the people who are consuming. And it's gonna change the way we buy products, is our belief. And the conversations we had yesterday from a heart health perspective, George, all the way out to your, cholesterol, lipids, to all those different things. Thanks to people like Bryan Mussard, who were gracious enough, and I can't tip my hat enough to you, Bryan, for doing the work and doing the hard work of making sure that, you're growing great crops and feeding your animals with good, solid ingredients. It's done nothing but also help our cause. So thank you very much. And believe me, it's top of mind. We're talking about it every day. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe. Arthur? Arthur, you may be on mute.
Yeah, if Arthur, are you here? There was also a question from Energy. Can't see my full screen right now.
Energy wise.
Energy.
Yes, I'm not your typical caller, probably, or person listening to this. This is not my livelihood. As you can tell, I'm a heat and air guy that does that so I can play with cows. I run about 30 to 40 cows, nothing big, just have property and use it. But my goal's always been to spray fertilizer, find something that I can spray and control when I spray, and control my fertilizer cost and whatnot. And that's how I stumbled across you guys this spring, and have been putting it out since spring. Question is, if and as you gain success as a company from a corporate level, how do you see your pricing going? Does it increase with your success, or does your cost come down with the success and be able to pass that on to the consumer? I guess what I'm asking, as you succeed, is your price going upward, or is it staying the same? Your input costs stay where it's at?
I don't have a crystal ball.
I think there's a good answer to that one, and that is, our intent is to provide a really, really good product at a really good price point, and being sensitive to our consumers of our product. That is our main goal. because we love all of you doing business with us. Now, we're doing everything we can to keep our cost efficient and to make sure that we can try to push those efficiencies out to all of you. So I can't promise that our price will never go up, but I can sure promise that we're not a company that's beat on price. So we are very conscious of what the trials and tribulations are of our consumers. And we're going to stay conscious because we want to be in business for a long time, and we want to be able to enjoy the fruits of all of your labor with you. And I hope that'll help you as you make decisions about EnSoil.
Well, I can say as a customer and using this and using other products, look at all corporations, look at McDonald's, look at any kind of business model. It starts at the mom and pop, starts at this little level. You guys started, 5 years ago? You guys started? And it's growing now. And what I've seen in my adult career is 40 years, 25 years down the road, there's nobody left that started the company and appreciates the value of it and helping other people. And it's left to a board of directors. It's just they're just watchmen for the investors. And I would hope that the people involved starting this will, that's the most important thing to do, is to mentor that transition as it goes forward and keep it down there, because it's pretty easy for any company to just start watching profits and then you really lose your traction.
Agree with that, Brian. And that's what I said, what I did. I think our commitment is to the people who are in business with us together, putting this great product out into the fields, feeding it, growing it, expanding it in all different areas where it can provide goodness. But if we were only in business to make money, we wouldn't be in business for very long. So it takes a round robin approach, I think. And that's what we're here to do, is to commit to the long haul and to provide good product and good service with that product.
And I'll add that 30 or 40 cows, that's about average for the United States. Last I knew, the average cow herd was somewhere between 40 and 50 cows. So I think it's going to take a joint effort for all of us to come together, find these channels, these marketing channels for our products, whether it's grain that we're raising or forage that we're raising to feed to the cattle, whether it's cattle raised the right way on down the chain, if you will. I think there's some exciting things ahead because of what George said earlier, as far as what the consumer is wanting and the food is health movement. I think it'll all come together and be very beneficial for all of us. I appreciate that question, though.
Well, I'm in Georgia, so when y'all get those stickers that say that we feed EnSoil and I can charge more, I would like one.
Whereabouts in Georgia?
I'm in Monticello, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta, about 30 miles southeast.
Yep. I used to come down to Macon and Montezuma quite a bit.
Yep.
Yazzie, any
Alright.
hands up?
What'd you say?
Yazzie, were there any more questions in the queue?
No more questions in the queue. Jess Smith just added a comment about advertising your market cattle and grain or other agricultural products on Hitchpin. Hitchpin's a website where, you can advertise your farming products, and it's free to create a storefront. So I can put a link to that in the follow-up email too. But yeah, I just want to say how grateful we are to Brian and Mike for joining us today. And thank you, Tucker and Darren, for asking great questions, and all of you for being here. Please feel free to reach out at any point. Again, you'll get a follow-up. So you can ask questions then too.
Great. Thank you, Yazzie, for coordinating. And thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks
for having us.
Great
pleasure.
visit today.
Bye, guys.